Another beer release weekend at Canal Place. This weekend it's Technosignature. It's going to be our fourth release. The first one we did during COVID, kind of a recipe I put together from a couple of Valley experiments, double whirlpool parties. Carl came on board, brewed it, didn't change a thing. The second time, the third time last year, he moved a bunch of hops around. And then this year he's made another totally different change, not on the hop side, but the grain side. So what change did you make? Why did you want to make it, and how did it turn out?
So originally, I think the first time that I personally made this, the Centennial Cascade, the Centennial Cascade that we put in this, those are more of your classic traditional West Coast style hops. And when I tasted it for the first time, it was just something seemed to be not quite as harmonious as I would have hoped for. It seemed like it was trying to be both a juicy IPA with a West Coast style hop profile, and achieving neither one of those really well. Like I didn't think it was fulfilling its role as a New England IPA super well, and neither was it working really well as a West Coast IPA. So the first change that we made, we decided to keep the Cascade and Centennial in there, because I thought those were interesting hops, right? I like the idea of using classic West Coast C hops in a juicy IPA, but in the amounts that we were doing, the ratios that we were putting them in there, like I said, it just didn't seem like it was achieving either West Coast or New England IPA very well. So what we did was we bumped up the ratio of Citra, so it's much more Citra forward. And then we scaled back, but kept the Centennial Cascade in there. So now it's much more citrus forward. It's your typical juicy hop profile. It's very juicy hop forward, but with a little bit of like a classic West Coast floral or herbal spicy character, just kind of to spice it up a little bit. So I think now we've kind of moved it very much more solidly into New England IPA character with just a little bit of a spiced up West Coast twist to it.
But you didn't stop there.
We didn't stop there. So this year when we made this time, I felt like I was still missing a little bit of something. I felt like what those West Coast hops needed was just the malt bill still wasn't working quite as well as I would have liked. The first thing that came to mind was I thought the spice character that we're getting from those West Coast hops, I felt like they could meld better if we spiced up the malt bill a little bit. And by spice up the malt bill, what I mean was the oats that we typically put in our New England IPAs, I basically pulled the oats out and I replaced them with rye. Now rye, I'm sure most of you probably had rye at some point, right? If you had rye bread, something you notice that stands out about rye bread is that it's got more of a dry and spicy character to it. And so what I hope you notice when you drink the Technosignature now is that there is much more of a definitive rye character that's specific to this Technosignature that we aren't doing with our other West Coast IPAs. At least we haven't done with any of our other IPAs yet. But I'm a huge fan of the way that it turned out. The way that spicy rye characters supporting those, traditional spicy herbal, floral, mildly citrusy West Coast hops in the background that's working underneath this, much more citrus, orange juice forward, Citra character. It's, like I said, I noticed the rye seems to have more of a dry character to it, more so than you get the oats. So it's a high protein malt, just like your oats. So it does kind of help round out the body, but at the same time, oats kind of give you more of a fluffy character to the body, whereas the rye tends to make things, a little bit more, tends to lend more of a perceived dryness to it. And like I said, and that's on top of the kind of like rye spicy character you get just from the rye itself.
No, it's become it has coalesced while becoming even more distinct, but everything's playing together a lot better.
Oh yeah, I think after this recent batch, I think we kind of really dialed in the interplay of the malt and the hops. And like I said, I think the biggest thing is we moved it very much more definitively into New England IPA territory. But with couple little spicy twists. So we could spice it up in a couple ways, right?
Yeah.
West Coast hops and a bit of rye malt. So it's, I think, an interesting twist on a New England IPA without adding anything crazy, right? We're not adding any kind of flavoring or anything like that, but we found little small tweaks that we could use to kind of really spice up your otherwise very typical New England IPA cake.
And this release is actually the first release that we're releasing at Canal Place in our new boxed packaging, the new cardboard that we've been working on. You'll probably see Twitchy Ethiopian on the shelves, possibly already. We haven't released that here, but this is our first boxed product here with the new label design. So it's a twofer.
Yeah.
This isn't even on the shelves yet. You'll probably see it next week, the week after, out at your favorite retailer, but we have it at the tap room this weekend.
We're very excited. I think the box looks amazing. The beer tastes amazing. I feel good about the way we've dialed in everything about this beer. So
So
cheers.
Cheers.